If you've paid any attention to Elden Ring's marketing, then you've probably seen this character a few times before. This is Vargram, the Raging Wolf. Or it's at least someone wearing his armor set. Either way, Vargram is basically a mascot for Elden Ring, but there's a bit of a disconnect between that and his role in the actual game. On top of being tied to an optional quest, it's possible to get locked out of ever meeting him depending on how you progress. Still, despite how small of a role he's given, Vargram's story helps highlight some of the most important events in the history of the Lands Between. I'll try my best to cover everything that can be learned from him, so of course, there will be spoilers ahead. The first mention of Vargram actually dates all the way back to Elden Ring's closed network test. Instead of the 10 classes that are available in the full release, the network test only included 5 options: Warrior, Enchanted Knight, Prophet, Champion, and Bloody Wolf. That last one starts with the Bloody Wolf helm, armor, gauntlets, and greaves.
I see the shoes.
They all describe how Vargram was one of the first Tarnished to visit the Round Table Hold, which is interesting because we know so little about the Round Table's creation. We're told it's a gathering place of Tarnished that exists outside of the world, but an abandoned, physical version of it called the Fortified Manor can be found in the royal capital, kind of like how the Hunter's Dream worked in Bloodborne. It's possible that there's a sort of recreation or remembrance of the Round Table being sustained by the Erd Tree, but that's not too important to cover for now, since this video is more focused on Vargram himself. His armor also tells us that according to the old legends, wolves are the shadows of the Empyrean, and this is what Vargram aspired to be. This refers to the relation between an Empyrean and their Shadowbound Beast. The Empyreans are these sort of divine individuals that are often chosen by the Two Fingers for a specific purpose. These include Queen Marika, who would become the vessel for the Elden Ring, along with a few of her offspring, being Ranni, Miquella, and Malenia, who were all chosen as candidates to lead the coming age. Ranni and Marika were given their own Shadowbound Beasts in the forms of Blaidd and Malekith, and Blaidd's side quest gives a little bit more insight into how these relations work.
Blaidd is Lady Ranni's stepbrother. Ranni's mother, Queen Renala, approved of him, and they played like siblings from childhood. The Two Fingers gave Blaidd to Lady Ranni as a faithful follower, her very shadow.
While Blaidd is called Ranni's stepbrother, Malekith, on the other hand, is supposedly Marika's half-brother. While this makes it sound like they share a blood relation, it's worth noting that in the Japanese version, both relationships are described using the same kanji. I don't really know what to make of this being translated in different ways, just thought I should point it out. Now, Vargram is obviously not an actual wolf like Blaidd or Malekith, but this relation between an Empyrean and their Shadowbound is occasionally reflected in other non-wolf creatures, like how a Bloodhound Knight will serve one master for their whole life, or how Sirach was loyal to Godfrey and his lineage. So maybe Vargram just wanted to play a similar role to the Shadowbound, or maybe he had a plan to somehow become an actual beast himself. Either way, his end goal was to serve an Empyrean, but now the question is, which Empyrean did Vargram have in mind? Ranni and Marika already have their own shadows, and the twins Miquella and Malenia seem to be pretty far removed from the whole system after the shattering. But there's actually a 5th Empyrean that we haven't covered yet. One incantation describes how the Godskin Apostles, whose black flames once had the power to slay a god, were led by a character called the Gloam-Eyed Queen, who is said to have been an Empyrean chosen by the Fingers. She also used to be called the Dusk-Eyed Queen, but that name was basically retconned out in a later patch. The Gloam-Eyed Queen cradles newborn apostles swaddled in cloth made from skin sewn together, and soon they will grow to become the death of the gods. There's a lot more to her story and how Vargram could have been involved in it, but for now, let's look at how Vargram's role plays out in the actual game. The Bloody Wolf is no longer a starting class, and to even meet Vargram, you'll have to explore Mount Gelmir and find the Recusants of the Volcano Manor.
So, Tarnished, have you ever harbored doubts about the burden of grace and the dogmatic ramblings of the Fingers? If you have, why not join the Volcano Manor? Rise with us against the Erd Tree.
Being enemies of the Erd Tree, of course, makes the Manor generally opposed to the Two Fingers, but even as a member of the Round Table, they'll allow you to join their forces. And there's definitely no ulterior motive here. You'll soon receive letters detailing targets for assassination. The first of these is described as one of a few wizened Tarnished who survived to this day, and the second uses tools from a time when those who strayed from guidance feared nothing more than the utter silence of the Round Table Hold assassins.
So, you've blooded your sword in the hunt.
Then I shall introduce myself. Bernal, a recusant just like you. Take this. A special invitation.
It seems like the Tarnished from the early days of the Round Table are the Manor's primary targets, and this letter, addressed to Bernal, actually details two names that fall under this: Errant Sorcerer Wilhelm and Vargram, the Raging Wolf. His title of Bloody Wolf from the network test is gone now, probably to minimize confusion with things like the Bloody Fingers and the Bloodstar. At some point, Wilhelm was led by guidance into confrontation with his friend Vargram, and it is said he was then taken prisoner in Round Table Hold. There's a good chance that Wilhelm was imprisoned for his study of the primeval current, a forbidden tradition that involved transforming sorcerers into graven masses to form the seeds of stars. Just like Vargram, Wilhelm was one of the first Tarnished to visit the Round Table Hold, which makes it pretty fitting that you and Bernal invade their world where the physical version of the Round Table is found.
Let us tread the path of the recusant together, till we reach the miserable death that awaits us.
Whatever their previous conflict was, these two must now work together against the common enemy of the Recusants. Wilhelm's weapon of choice is the Staff of Loss, focusing on spells used by the assassins of Celia, and Vargram uses the Godslayer's Greatsword, the sacred sword of the Gloam-Eyed Queen.
We recusants must become the most wretched of predators. All you can do is laugh. O greater will, hear my voice. I am the recusant Bernal, inheritor of my brother's will, and you will fall to my blade. Consider this fair warning.
So yeah, Vargram doesn't have that big of a role in this game, but if we can get our hands on the same weapon that he used, it can provide a bit more insight on how he fits into Elden Ring's greater story. Within Caelid's Divine Tower, down in its basement, past a Black Flame monk, and guarded by a Godskin apostle, a single chest holds the legendary Godslayer's Greatsword, sacred sword of the Gloam-Eyed Queen, who controlled the Godskin apostles before her defeat at the hands of Malekith. The black flames wielded by the apostles are channeled from this sword. That part about Malekith is a key point for piecing together the final story. Marika, the god of the Golden Order, is associated with the Elden Ring, the Erd Tree, and life itself, while the Gloam-Eyed Queen is associated with Black Flame and Destined Death. In this way, these two characters are sort of opposing reflections of the other, but the one huge imbalance between them is Marika's access to a Shadowbound Beast. Marika's sole need of Malekith was as a vessel to lock away Destined Death, but the Gloam-Eyed Queen presumably had no shadow of her own to oppose him. Vargram may have wanted to take this role. Of course, all of these assumptions only work if the Gloam-Eyed Queen is in fact the Empyrean mentioned in the Raging Wolf set, but I think that's the strongest conclusion considering the limited evidence we're given. Whatever the case, the god-slaying power of the Black Flame has been lost since her defeat, and it looks like Vargram never achieved his goal of becoming a shadow. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
How would you like to earn the strength of beasts?